Hey friends, welcome back to Compassion Camp. This is our second video for week 3, and we're going to be talking about the Bible story. So this week, our focus is that we are trying to figure out how to have compassion for ourselves. Sometimes we're given the message that caring for ourselves is selfish, or we worry that others might think we don't care enough for them. But it's important to have love and compassion for ourselves, so important in fact that God even included it as one of the greatest rules to live by. So today's story highlights something simple yet often forgotten, a commandment to love God, love neighbors, and yes, to love ourselves. So as you listen to the story in this video, think about how you feel when Jesus says, love and care for others as yourself. Why is it important to care for yourself? And what does it look like that for you? Okay? So let's hear the story. Jesus and the disciples spent a lot of time in Jerusalem. One day, Jesus was at the temple, a place where people gathered to worship God, and he was teaching and telling stories. A lot of people listened eagerly, but many had questions, just like we all do when we listen to Jesus' stories. The temple leaders and elders were unsure of him and asked, "Who gave you the power to say and do these things?" Some were jealous and wanted to trick him, so they asked, "Should the people pay taxes?" Others were worried and asked him, "What happens in the resurrection and the afterlife?" Then one temple leader was curious about Jesus. He saw that Jesus was wise and kind. He asked him, "Which one of God's laws or commandments is the most important?" And then Jesus answered, "The first is what we all know. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul, with all your mind and all your strength." Before the temple leader could ask more, Jesus went on. The second is to love your neighbor as yourself. These two are the most important of God's laws. So the leader who questioned Jesus is concerned with a lot, right? They're focused on things that aren't related to loving God, loving neighbors, or loving ourselves. They don't understand or trust Jesus, how he heals, teaches, and loves, and how the people follow him. So they asked Jesus, "Where did you go to become a teacher?" Because they didn't understand where he got his power and his knowledge. They asked him about his political views, hoping he would choose one side and make at least some people angry if they didn't choose their side. They asked him about complicated things like the afterlife because they thought he wouldn't be able to give a good answer. And then the people would become unsure of him too and stop following him. So let's think a little bit more about this story. I want you to find this page in your family guide. You see it has our picture for the day on it that says "For myself." And it's this girl in the picture that's sitting crisscross and hugging herself, saying that she is gentle, loving, important, good, strong, enough, kind, unique, smart, and brave. And I bet you can find some of those words that fit you, and probably more words that fit you. So we'll look at this page and ask some questions. What does it mean to love ourselves? Why is it important? How does having love for ourselves help us to love others and also to love God? So what are some ways you can love yourself? So work on these questions with your family and see what you can come up with. Then I want you to move on to imagine together. So what would it be like to be in the crowd hearing all these questions? What would it be like to hear Jesus remind people of God's most important rules to live by? How do you imagine the disciples felt listening to the religious leaders ask Jesus those questions? I bet they felt a little nervous. How do you imagine the religious leaders were unsure of Jesus? So what about Jesus made them feel uncomfortable? And imagine why Jesus' answers were surprising for them to hear. So spend some time thinking about that and working through that with your family. Then I want you to color your pictures and cut them out and put it on that garland in your house. So every time you look at it, it will remind you that compassion helps us love ourselves. And that is the place that we have to start from in order to love God and to love other people well, right? All right. So when we get together in person, we will be doing the create and play, the movement and the compassion and action sections together. And I am having so much fun getting together with all of you friends who are able to come. We're having a great time stretching with our yoga, being creative with our crafts, and coloring the big poster that we're going to put together at the end of Compassion Camp. All right, friends, I hope you have an amazing week, and you will check back in with me again for our very last video where we're going to sing again and we'll get sent out and ready to enjoy the next week of Compassion Camp. See you again soon.